Hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure, an absolute joy to see you all here. It's an absolutely great conference, and it's I know it's second afternoon, and we're after lunch, but I hope to excite you and entertain you a little bit with one of my favorite new features on the web, and I hope you come with me on this. My name's Phil Nash. I am a developer advocate at a company called Sonar. Sonar is a code quality solution. It helps you write clean code. We have a couple of products, SonarLint, which is a free editor for your free plugin for your editor that will help you find and fix bugs as you're writing code. And then SonarQube, SonarCloud will live in your pipeline to help stop those bugs going into production. If you've got any questions about Sonar at all, we have a little booth just over there somewhere. So come see us afterwards. Any questions about this talk, of course, come see us over there afterwards. So let's get on with this. Again, my name's Phil Nash. You can find me on the internet as Phil Nash everywhere. Let's carry on. I want to talk today about the Vue Transitions API. It is absolutely my favorite new thing on the web, and I'm going to tell you why over the next 20, 25 minutes. It's a bit of a story about single-page application transitions, as well as multi-page application transitions. It's going to help us building our single-page apps, our React, our Vue, our Angular, but it also helps if we are just generating multi-page applications, and that's what I'm excited about. And I'll tell you how it works. I've got a little example here just to start with. I'm going to throw code straight up onto this. If you had a bit of HTML that looks like this, where we've got like an image and a little caption under that image and a bit of JavaScript to say we're going to play this transition, and then in the JavaScript we'll grab the element by its ID, and then this is a real simple thing. We just switch in some HTML. We grab the filters array from the element, and then when you've got that filters, you move the new HTML in, and then you play the filter, and then a little bit of CSS that looks like this. It's a bit long. It's a bit complicated. Using the old DX image transform from Microsoft. Thank you very much. And it ends up looking like this. You get a like blinds transition, which is kind of cool. Yeah, no, I had to download Internet Explorer 8 and Windows XP in order to do this demo, because it turns out that, yes, Internet Explorer invented this back quite a long time ago. It works for multi-page applications, too. It's a meta tag. You get a choice of transitions. In this case, this was transition 12 you could do. So yes, Internet Explorer actually invented this, and we never picked it up. It was a real shame. But thank you, Internet Explorer. Thank you for the web. You gave us all that, and then you stopped working on it. So we have better news, because we have a new Vue Transitions API that actually matters. And it doesn't have any Microsoft inside the CSS properties, which is exciting. So the Vue Transitions API, I want to take a step back and why do we want to build something like this? Why do we need an API for Vue Transitions? Because we are building applications that have a lot of interactivity and a lot of things that users love, and part of that is moving from state to state. And what we're really trying to avoid, particularly in the case of a multi-page application, is that flash of white, that blank page that we get between two states. The entire thing is about state. We've been speaking for years and inventing libraries and everything to manage state in our front end. But when you have two different HTML pages, that state is completely thrown away, flash of white, and the new thing that arrives next up. It's also a little bit challenging to do a transition, a nicely animated transition between two states, even in a single-page application, because you go from that stage of having one state and then made of data, and then you change that data in the state, and the application, the UI, has to kind of update to that, and it kind of needs to know about both states at the same time, and that's been kind of traditionally difficult. I looked into this in Angular recently, and up until recently, Angular had basically reinvented CSS in JavaScript, but not as a CSS and JavaScript framework. They reinvented CSS and JavaScript just to do page transitions between things. And it just made me sad kind of reading all this definite CSS that was just JavaScript, just to make this happen. And so I want to show you what this actually looks like and how it is actually implemented with a quick demo. I have a genuinely terrible website. But it is as simple as possible, simple as it can be. It has 2 pages. This looks like it has 3 links, but they all go to the same thing. And actually, it really is just replacing HTML on the page. Like, it flips back and forth between the two things. Not that much fun. Not a white flash, admittedly. This is a single-page application. It uses inner HTML all over the place. What it's doing is taking some old content and then putting some new content in the inner HTML and then swapping it out. But we can update this to make it a nicer swap. It doesn't have to be so jarring, so quick like that. We can take it, because we have this update the document function, and instead of just straight calling it, we can use this new API, and we can call on document.start view transition. And then in there, we'll give it a function that is going to change the UI. Now, this function can be as complicated as you need it to be, but in this case, it really is just changing inner HTML contents. When we do that, I'll refresh that page. I've gone off the internet, so the images are going to go away, but that doesn't matter, because we're going to see, just by changing that one line, we now get a crossfade. We haven't given it any style. This is the default kind of result of calling start transition, calling start view transition, and we get a crossfade like that. I think that's quite nice. That's a good start. I love a nice default like that. And so that's it again. Document.start transition, start view transition, and then you pass it the function that is going to change the document. Now, you can do this, in your massive single-page application. You can do it with a 3-line function that changes inner HTML. And what it's actually doing behind the scenes is quite interesting. What it's doing is creating a bunch of layers. It takes a snapshot of the page at the start of calling start view transition, and it makes that basically an image on the page. And that image you can address in CSS as the view transition old root, and the root being the whole page. It then performs the state update, the change, what the page is going to look like, and takes another snapshot, and then we'll animate between them. And that default animation is that crossfade. But we have control of this, because these are CSS pseudo elements that we can actually use to animate themselves. And so the whole thing becomes this kind of layery thing. I built this slide deck in HTML as well, so I wanted to be like, I can do Z index. We get this layer of like a surrounding thing, and then we get this group of things, and then there's sort of like an extra group of them, and then each of the snapshots. And it's important to know that the old one actually sits on top of the new one. So it is in that order, old and then new. Because if you want to go the other way, it has to be changed around. And so we can use that CSS to change that. So if I go into my CSS for this, I didn't want to live code this because no one wants to see anybody live code a cubic Bezier function. I'm glad you agree. But if I uncomment that, then I'm making a view transition here that's going to animate the old state up and out and fade away, and the new state fade in and up. It's a nice little thing. I'm going to save that, and we'll see that in action right now. And what you're going to see is that I've broken it. Because the whole page now flashes. The header, the footer are doing this. It's not what we want to see. So we have this power, and now we've abused it and made things worse. Sorry about that. So if I go back to the CSS, it turns out that we can actually create other layers as part of this. So with that default version, we get a layer out of the whole page. But we can create other layers by naming them. And in this case, if I name the header and the footer, header and footer, doesn't matter what you name them. If we do that, they get their own layer. They're going to do the animation independently now. But because the header and the footer are at the top and the bottom of the screen, they don't move anywhere, they don't actually have to animate between each other. Oh, sorry, no, that's not right. They're not doing the animation because this CSS is for the root object, and these are now header and footer objects. And so I've saved that, and if I change it now, and again, apologies for the images, but now the header and the footer don't get animated. We've isolated them from the rest of the page, and just the content, just the rest of the page is going to do this nice upwards and inwards transition. I like that. So that's what happens when you name a thing. We started with just this view transition group here, with the image pair of the old and the new full page, and then we isolate anything we name. We had a view transition group for the header, and that has an image pair what it looked like before and what it looked like afterwards. And we can animate that independently now, which is kind of nice. In fact, actually, because it's the default, it is doing a crossfade, but because it's crossfading to itself, you can't see that. It's important to note that this is actually quite debuggable as well. This is just CSS animations, and so all of the existing browser tooling for CSS animations exists. So if you pop open, I'm in Chrome here, if you pop open the animations tab in DevTools, then you can capture that animation. And you can play around with it. You can slow it down. I quite like that. Let's do it in 10%. And if we do capture it, we can also pause it halfway through and then let's do that one more time. We can capture that, and then we can actually debug the entire transition ourselves using the animation timeline. I don't have time to go into how the DevTools for animations work, but they're really cool. And we can see each of those individual transitions happening and control them in order to debug them. So I like that. And then there's some other interesting and important things you need to know about this. First up, you can do like entrance and exit animations. If you have an element that is not previously on the page and then entering the page, we can provide an entry animation for it using only child on the new transition. And we can, if an element is exiting the page, we can do a exit animation using the view transition old and only child. I think it's cool. I don't have a demo for that though. And other important things are accessibility, of course. If you are, as you should be, kind of, when you're making animations, you should be cognitive of users who cannot deal with things flying about, moving around the page. And so, like, turning them off. This is the easiest thing you can do. The media query prefers reduced motion. Will tell you if a user does prefer reduced motion. And if they do, the easiest thing you can do is turn it off. But reduced motion doesn't necessarily mean no motion. It just means less of it. Make it snappier. Don't make things fly around too much. But it's important to remember that and to turn it off when a user requires that. I could go deeper into this, but we don't have that much time today. And Jake Archibald's article on this on the Chrome developer docs is that it goes into a whole bunch of detail about how to deal with this. So I fully recommend reading through this article. It is great. It will even give you pointers for how this works in your favorite framework as well. Browser support, of course, remains only Chromium things. So that, of course, means Chrome and Edge and Opera. Remember Opera? But that, is 2/3 of the internet these days. So I think this is a really nice progressive progressive enhancement. And you can progressively enhance this. If the document start view transition function exists, then we can use it. And if it doesn't, you get the old transitionless moves. Or you use whatever code you were using before to do a transition. Progressive enhancement is also one of my favorite things about the web platform, always has been. We invent new things, and eventually the browsers can catch up to us. So that's a bit of a change. I like single-page application transitions like that. But my real favorite thing is multi-page application transitions for this, because this is something we could not have done before. Multi-page application transitions are experimental. There's a little warning here. This still is not live in browsers today, but doesn't stop us from experimenting with it. And the way to do so is flip on the flag. View transition API for navigations. It's on there in Chrome's flags. And highly worth doing so, because you can find all the other web developers who've done so when you visit their blog and things fly around when you change pages. It's great. Multi-page application transitions start even simpler. We don't need a function. We don't need anything. Much like in the Internet Explorer days, we just need a meta tag. In this case, the meta tag is view transition. The content is same origin. Same origin is all we can do right now, although there is investigations into whether cross-origin transitions can be achieved. And when you do that, let's go to my multi-page demo. It's the same site. It just has more than one page. If you can see the URL bar, that is changing between 1 and 2. And if you add the meta tag view transition same origin, what you would get is that crossfade animation. but this is the same site, so I've already done the rest of the CSS to change the animations, and in my multi-page application now, it looks the same. That is changing pages, that is doing a full navigation, yet it acts and appears the exact same as the single page application version that we saw earlier. I think that's so cool. That's all I get to tell you about multi-page applications. It's a meta tag, and the rest is all what we just discussed. It's very cool. It's all in the CSS. And so that kind of brings me to like a bit of a question about the future of web development. You see, we've spent a lot of time. There's been an entire sister conference to this across town about Vue in the last couple of days. And we spent a lot of time building frameworks that make it easier for us to, I genuinely think, to miss out on the white flash of a page between things, so that we can maintain state over multiple different parts of an application. And that's fine. But so many applications don't need an enormous framework in order to deal with that. Some applications could be multi-page applications with a sprinkling of other JavaScript, but for the user experience, for the transition, for the way to get between it without flashing white to people, we implement React, we implement Vue. And it's a bad idea. Or in my opinion, it's a bad idea. There is a spectrum between website with only HTML and CSS and full-blown web application that requires everything we can throw at it from JavaScript. And I think that Vue transitions like this, the multi-page application version of it, can move the area on that spectrum from where we used to implement a framework a little bit further towards the full experience that a full application requires. And I think that's exciting. It means that those sites that we can drop frameworks from and just use them for transitions will be faster, will be more performant, will be less taxing on a user's browser, on a user's mobile device. And that's exciting to me. And I hope you kind of agree with that. I made the point about websites and web applications. Yeah, we need to make a decision when we come up with something like this, whether we need this much technology or this much technology. And I think this helps with that. And we can build those exciting transitions. We can actually have quite a lot of fun with this as well. Now, I don't think anybody really needs blinds as a transition, but we can implement it. And so I did. I've done a bunch of these. I've got a little project going called Unnecessary Vue Transitions, and it has a bunch of examples of ways we could do a transition. This is running locally for me right now, but this is online. I'll tweet out the link later. And so we can do blinds using CSS purely. And it's not that much CSS even. It's quite incredible. When I was preparing this talk and working on this, it turned out I learned a lot more about animations in CSS than I ever knew before, than I actually learned about the Vue Transition API itself, including things like, I think this is part of Houdini, using the property to define what a CSS custom property does, and its sort of values, so that you can animate over it. And yeah, if you use then mask image from CSS as well, with a repeating linear gradient, we can absolutely build ourselves a blind transition. And then there's others. Let's go back. So I had a bit of fun with this. You know, you can slide things from the left. You can slide things in from the right. Up. I did that on the slides earlier. Obviously, we can do down. Oh, over. That was quite nice. But my favorites became blind, and then using other masking things, we could do a nice screen wipe. I quite like that. Super simple again. It's this much CSS. Again, I'll share the link so you can actually go and see these later. The spiral wipe. Yeah. We can turn our websites into bad 80s television shows. Oh my God, I'm excited about that. And then what are they? Oh, a little circle in. That's cool. Again, mask image is one of the most powerful bits of CSS we have. It's absolutely unreal. Oh, this is clip path, actually. Sorry. Mask image is cool. This is clip path. Also very cool. And the last one, oh, scale in. That was so boring. Let's go back to spiral. Woo! And so there's so much fun we can have with this, but we can also make the experience better via it as well. And so all I'm kind of asking for you is, you know, with these things at our fingertips, and these multi-page transitions will come at some point. I'm certain of it. we can make the right choices about the technologies we use to build our sites with. If all you are doing a framework for is to make the experience like smoother, transitions are going to help us do that anyway. I'm not going to finish there. Yes, no, I am. Yeah, make those right choices. Build smooth animations, build great user experiences, and use the power of progressive enhancement and the platform that we have today to do this. Again, my name is Nash. I'm a developer advocate at Sonar. I'd love to come and chat. I'd love to chat with you over at the booth there if you do have any more questions. I will share these slides out and the link to unnecessary view transitions so that you can all have a play with them. Come up with your own. It's open source. Please submit your own. And otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of DevWorld, and thank you very much.